President Hichilema, a very warm welcome to Rwanda. As we say in Kinyarwanda, murakaza neza.
Thank you.
Your Excellencies, we have here today Zambian and Rwandan media. And before we proceed to take questions from them, I would like to ask if you have any brief statements you would like to make. Your Excellency, President Kagame, may I invite you to deliver your statement.
Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema, President of the Republic of Zambia, honorable ministers, senior officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take this opportunity once again to welcome President Hichilema and his entire delegation to Rwanda. The President and I have had productive discussions over the years. Rwanda and Zambia have forged strong bilateral relations, and we have made good progress in the implementation of several partnership agreements. Despite the recent global shocks that have impacted Africa's economies, we continue to find ways to sustain our gains and support our citizens to navigate ongoing economic challenges. Both Rwanda and Zambia have a relatively young population that is full of energy and talent. We want to work together with the rest of the continent, as well our partners, to invest in these young people in order to ensure a more secure, sustainable, and innovative Africa. Once again, President, welcome to Rwanda. I look forward to attending the Inclusive FinTech Forum with you later today to hear from and have interactions with experts and share ideas and insight with one another. I thank you all. I have the honor of inviting you, President, to give your remarks.
Mr. President, thank you very much for receiving us well here in Kigali, Rwanda. Since we arrived, hospitality has been very good. But on a more substantive matter, to just echo your words, Mr. President, that the two countries have had a long relationship, many years of working together in different areas, and we are very delighted that today we are here to further that relationship, to grow that partnership. The people of Rwanda, the people of Zambia, who we work for, can see benefits, tangible benefits of this relationship, Mr. President. And that's only possible if we are able to cooperate in a number of areas: economic, trade, investment, agriculture. Given our pool of resources, pool of talent, capabilities, when we work together, we will be able to deliver benefits for the people of Rwanda and the people of Zambia, and beyond the citizens of the two countries, in our regions, on our continent, and in the world. We know that, for example, the global food basket is not full. global food situation is deteriorating. One hand, we have a growing population. On another, we are not scaling up production of food to feed our people. So these relationships, our conversations around agriculture, supporting each other, investing together, will contribute towards that food basket for Rwanda, for Zambia, for the region, continent, and the world. Given Africa's resource endowment, natural resource endowments, I like singing this song, Mr. President. We should not be having any African going to bed without food. It's unacceptable. And so it goes for technological areas, Mr. President. We have discussed at length. We had our meeting in Zimbabwe in Victoria Falls not long ago, where we discussed the importance of accelerating technological advancements, digital issues, so that we can improve the flow of trade, movement of goods and services between our countries. And we criticized ourselves that time that we are proudly talking about one-stop border posts. Actually, we should have non-stop border posts, because technology allows us to do that. So to speed up what we do together. We also have, for the media, for the public, been working together. We want to enhance that part, as the President said, of keeping our countries safe, keeping our regions, continents safe, keeping our world safe, secure, stable, so we can focus on the developmental ticket. And we're very pleased to indicate that we, as brotherly countries, sisterly countries, take your pick, whether we're sisters or brothers, we are everything, would enhance our cooperation in that area. And it's a necessary ingredient, colleagues, to achieve our objectives at the economic, social level. That, to many people I say, we take for granted that we can have a press briefing here in an environment of peace. We take that for granted. It is not true that this peace is there because it's there. It is there because people have worked to make it peaceful. And so we would like to share, again, the experiences around there to grow this stability for progress, if I may say that, stability for progress. Mr. President, my team in our small meeting there, I do know my ministers. I was checking their body language. I think they're happy to be here. And we want to encourage them to deepen their relationships with their counterparts. They don't have to wait for us to meet like this. They have to be working together as routine, as mundane, as we address the concerns, genuine concerns of the youthful population that we have in our countries, two countries, and on our continent particularly. Africa has a profile of a younger age population, and it means us working harder to meet their expectations, to offer them opportunities in many areas, including self-employment. Yes, formal employment, but self-employment. I think these are the issues we've been discussing. I must say, Mr. President, since I took office 21 months ago, you are one of the presidents we have interacted quite often, meeting in different platforms, chatting, same hymn sheet, and I'm very grateful that we are here today formally to have this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. We will now begin by taking brief questions from the media, and we'd like to start with our guest. I'd like to invite Ellen to ask a question.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. My name is Ellen Hambuba from Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation. My first question goes to both Your Excellencies. Now, a number of MOUs have been signed between Zambia and Rwanda aimed at enhancing economic cooperation. What is the latest in as far as implementing these MOUs? Secondly, my other question goes to President Hakainde Hichilema. I know that there are talks of a debt restructuring deal which is coming up next week. How hopeful are you in terms of, with regards to actualizing this particular deal? Thank you so much, Excellencies.
President, you may go ahead first.
Mr. President, I believe you can answer for us, at least the first part. The first part.
Yes, the first part, well, where we are, the MOUs have had the different agreements. I think here you seem to be aware of them. But the President and I agree the agreements that are there become important only at that point when we start implementing them. I think on that we are fully agreed. We don't have agreements for the sake of having them. So at this point we are having a discussion that we need to see actual implementation and results, and that's why the President kept insisting on the constant and effective interaction between our officials and even citizens who should be enabled to do whatever they wish to do in both countries. And the flow should be without any limit of the movement of people, the movement of goods, the services that should cross borders. I think that's where we are at really, and that's the most important thing. Maybe next time we meet, you would be right also to ask, give us specific results in each area. And we should be able to give you actual numbers to reflect what has been done. So more discussion, better discussion next time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think you have captured it all. I think, Ellen, the answer is very, very clear. Focusing on implementation, roadmaps. I think that's what our two teams will be focusing on going forward. But we also want to acknowledge that sometimes delays are there for different reasons, but those reasons will not be the ones why we don't achieve progress. Also to indicate that one of the things we want to see in our countries is to really have a shared vision, not just staying with the leaders, but with our senior people, cabinets, the civil servants, public servants down there, and I dare say the media, so that we have national agendas. And once we enter into an MOU, particular leaders like the two of us, President Kagame and myself, it is taken in by the rest of the machine. When I say the machine, I'm not being derogatory, I'm talking of the institutions, the capacity, so that even when the two leaders are not there, because we sign MOU on shared, based on the shared vision, things will happen. this is what African countries need to learn from advanced countries, if we have to learn something. And we always can learn something from each other. That in many countries that have done well in the world, East or West, there's been consistency. You know, acceptability of this is what we want as a country. And that way it's easy, even if there's a change in the minister, even if there's a change in the permanent secretary. I think that is what is very, very important. So sometimes the slowness comes because there's a new person there, he wants to do things differently. No, these are important things. So thank you, Mr. President, for that. But the debt issue, Ellen, I would rather we preserve our time here on the issues which we have covered in our meeting, except to say that it's our desire to conclude the Zambia debt restructuring. And I know why you have asked the question. From here, I'm proceeding to Paris. And one of the key things there is to seek closure. It's been hanging on for too long. I said to President Macron when we met last time, I visited him, urging him to help us together with China, because they're the two chairs under the common framework to close the debt. We've been talking for too long. I said the debt, yes, we inherited it, but again, governments are institutions, they live on. So we have to deal with it. So I use an example that the debt we are faced with is like a python, crippling us in the neck, the ribs, and the legs. So we want this python rolled out of our body as a country. And then we have the capacity to implement the things that we have agreed with the president here and the people of Rwanda, because capacity will be released and not focused on the debt legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. The second question will be from the Rwanda Broadcasting Agency.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. My name is Sam Kalisa. I work for RBA. And my question, Your Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, you visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial and have witnessed the history of our country. And both of you, presidents, have committed to intra-African cooperation and learning from each other. And my question is, if you'd share with us, both of you and the people of our countries, moving forward, what will be the key areas of collaboration between our two nations and key lessons that we can learn from each other? Thank you.
May I take it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Again, we're very grateful to my brother here and the people of Rwanda for creating that space in our program to go to the memorial site, museum. Tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a human failure. Not just in Rwanda, but an indictment to all of us, because the facts around what happened there are such that as humanity we lost it. I say so because the signs were there early on, very clear, that this is where it would go. We didn't take the necessary steps, hence what is reflected there. So I think hatred must have limits. Some people don't have capability to create limits. So when they don't have capability to create limits, others must step in and create those limits. I think that's the point I want to make fundamentally, so that such things don't happen again. Second message is more President Kagame for Zambians, people outside Rwanda. And maybe inside Rwanda, those who have not sucked in what happened there, that we must remember what happened in the past. In our country, Mr. President, every time we want to remind people that, look, we haven't run our country properly see the effect of bad leadership. Look the impact. See what it does to humanity, to children in school or not in school. People in Zambia say, don't talk about the past. Just forget that. Now, how are you going to avoid repeating mistakes if you forget about the past? You forgive, but you don't forget. So you can use the lessons of the past to shape the future. That message is universal, goes beyond the boundaries of this country and Zambia. We still talk about the Jewish Holocaust today. And it's good that we talk about it. And visiting such places here is good. I went with my colleagues seated there. I know they feel slightly low. But also for me, Mr. President, it provided information gaps, which is important. So, going forward, we should cooperate more, share information, experiences. When we see the signs in any country, I think it's a collective responsibility for us to address those signs and not wait until it's too late. Especially that what happened here was orchestrated, was planned. There was collaboration, corroboration, whatever you want to call it, and across institutions, communities, even institutions we thought are the ones we should run to for solace, got entangled. So we should raise the flags. But how do we raise the flag? We must cooperate and share information and act together as single humanity, if I may use that expression. Otherwise, I think part of what we agreed is security cooperation, information sharing. I end there for greater good of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. If you allow, we will take 2 last questions. Let's have Kigali today.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. My name is Edmund Kajire. I work for Kigali Today. My question goes to President Hichilema and President Kagame. Recently, President Hichilema was part of the team that went to Ukraine and Russia under the auspices of the African Peace Initiative to try and play a peacemaker role. The effort drew mixed reactions, with many downplaying the role Africa can play in such global issues. Does that put into question Africa's position and influence in global events, which optimists like President Kagame say was boosted by the New World Order? Thank you.
President, I'm wondering, I was thinking whether we should waste much time talking about Russia and Ukraine here and not just concentrating on our bilateral issues and through that continental matters of our development. And the only thing I can draw from that, this conflict, which has had many consequences that have gone beyond that geographical space and affected those of us, say, in Africa and beyond and other places, whether we shouldn't be thinking even more about what we should be doing together. And each of our countries doing their best to make the kinds of investments that will enable us to survive no matter what conflict in other places. As of course we wish to have no such a conflict, so even to end them where they are. but to primarily survive the consequences of that. For example, everyone has heard of shortage of grains, of fertilizer, all kinds of things that we need for food or input into our agricultural systems. So can we build resilient economies and have these sectors so that, because we can grow grains, we can have grains to feed Zambia, Rwanda, and the rest of Africa, especially given the agreements we have signed and the vision we share of self-sufficiency, so that we are able to weather the storm that comes from different parts of the... This is really my,
Sure.
for me, what would be more important, but this is not to sort of belittle or minimize the importance of the effort. You, the leaders of our continent, attempted to contribute to the peace that is required in that part of the world, but also benefiting the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But I think putting them in terms of hierarchy, for me, the other one is more important, because even if you are to solve this problem, it doesn't matter that there is likely to be another conflict somewhere else. As we have seen, I'm talking as a student of history, or an observer who sees what happens in real life. So instead of running after one problem and trying to address it, which is necessary to do whenever that is required, but more important, running after these efforts to prevent by creating resilience in our governance, in our economies, in our productivity, and I think this is where, but it doesn't stop people trying to do something whenever and wherever they can to try and bring to an end any conflict like that. Even before it affects our economies, it consumes people's lives in their thousands, and really causes tragedies and devastation. But so I'm not sure. Well, the journalist is doing his work, but as leaders, we have to do our work also.
Indeed.
In terms of educating some of these journalists.
Just to add on a little bit to what the
President also
President,
had
yes,
something.
what the President has said, I agree with his responses, but just a little additional dose there is that it is true to say that conflict anywhere affects everyone else. It's very true to say so. And the distortions that it's having on, for example, that conflict on our own domestic economic management issues, imported inflation, I think that's why the President talking about developing capacity and capability to withstand those shocks. But certainly there is an impact on our continent. Some countries, Egypt imports close to 10 million tons of grain from Ukraine, Russia, and fertilizer affects a number of us, and fuel prices. So in that context, I think conflict anywhere does affect all of us in one way or the other. And we prefer to have less conflict. Yes, conflict will be there, but we prefer to have less conflict amongst ourselves anywhere in the world. One other matter which is important is that if you look at the Second World War, Second World War, it starts with one or two nations. Then the proliferation of that conflict sucks in the whole world. And one of our concerns is to make sure that a situation like that could evolve in addition to loss of lives, property, dislocation, migration, children who are taken away is not good enough. But we're still, you know that the two conflicting parties will have those who support them, and that could suck them into the war. And let me say it here. What if someone pulled a nuclear button? We would perish, isn't it? I think we need to see, for the journalists now, the President touched on a very important thing, but I'm just adding for you, given that you are the media and you spread these issues, that the world could be sucked into a very difficult situation. And I think it's important that we all talk against conflict, not singling out, extracizing a particular person. That's for inside the rooms, but outwardly there, war is not good, conflict is not good, and it could expand, it could polarize the world even more, east-west, as it sucks in those who are closer to the war, and then those who are even further and further eventually get sucked in. The prospect of a polarized world anchored on war like that is not what we want. So I think I want to say that Africa is coming of age. It cannot be an observer. Africa must sit at a table where decisions are made for positive reasons, economic, and also when there's a negativity like this. So it was quite enlightening to be there, but we need to work as a team, but more focusing on our direct responsibilities. You know, the supply chains were distorted by COVID-19, isn't it? Very serious. So we have learned our lesson. I think Rwanda is gone into producing some vaccines as a reaction to the consequences of a global crisis, such as disease, to mitigate in the case of a outbreak in future. We can source drugs within ourselves, because those who are the drugs area had to first support their own populations. And when Africa was last in the queue. So we want to thank Rwanda, South Africa, I think a few other countries that have gone that way. But out of a crisis, there are things that we can do. I think that's a connection to what the President said and what I'm saying. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. We'll have the last question from the New Times.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. My name is Edwin Musoni from the New Times. President Paul Kagame, 20 years ago when Rwanda embarked on investing on broadband technology,
Yes. Yes.
Edwin Musoni.
That's the name.
It's a Zambian name, my friend.
Oh, it's an honor.
Did you borrow a Zambian name?
We are one Africa.
Or you share
Yes.
them?
Yeah.
Share the names.
Mr. President, 20 years ago when Rwanda embarked on investing in broadband technology, the country was heavily criticized. It was referred to as a luxury investment. Today, you are at the center, Rwanda is at the center of hosting tech forums, like the ongoing FinTech Forum. How has the journey been beneficial? And maybe from your answer, can we also get to know what are some of the benefits of digital innovation and FinTech that Africa has to offer to the rest of the world? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, before I answer, would you take care of, I think these two people in front here, it's a bonus for them.
Thank you, sir.
Just a moment, but I mean,
We'll take you right after.
somebody is asking what they already know. And just asking me to tell him what he knows. Even first, narrated the story of where we came from. I'm sure you are aware. Where we came from was, yes, somebody might have thought that it is luxurious to invest in digital technologies at the time. But our answer to them then, which is absorbed by what is happening today, was that first in our country, in the old days, about 20 years ago, for example, it was difficult for us to prioritize because everything was a priority. So we were able to tell them, we are not investing in digitalization while depriving other sectors of resources. But we are doing that so that this can be complementary to other things we are doing. Because we knew then if we started early at the time, in a short time, that would actually enhance all other activities we are engaged in. It would support education, it would support agriculture, it would support, name it. So that's why we thought there was no conflict. And indeed, we've been proven right that there was no conflict, but rather it accelerated what we intended to do. Of course, the question is originating from the very fact that at that time we had everything as a priority. We also had the very difficult situation where it was limited resources that we had to put to all these issues we had to address. So I can understand somebody from afar or not so close to the issue or understanding that they would think we are putting a penny in digitization at the expense of growing food for people to eat. So we were able to bridge that gap by saying, no, what we are doing actually is also going into enabling people to grow food or to earn money or different things. So the fact that we are having today this FinTech forum is, speaks for itself, not only for the journey we have traveled as Rwanda, but also the continent in actual fact. The whole continent has grown in that sector alone, but has also benefited from other sectors growing off of that effort. The fact that people will be discussing and showcasing what is possible or what has been achieved across the continent. It's not just Rwanda. We are the hosts. We have our own small part we have contributed. But really, when you look at country by country across the continent, you will find that some countries have been growing very fast based on, and in fact, the theme of the discussion is about inclusivity. Precisely, that is it's a reminder that we're talking about technology, we're talking about so many things that require so much, both intellectual and resource inputs, but it doesn't make sense if it is not uplifting the standards of living of our people, which would benefit only a few people here and there, but if you are uplifting people, then those in the business will actually even benefit more.
Absolutely.
So that's, there is a lot to learn from that journey and how it happened, but there is even more to learn from how other countries have gone around about it and even benefited from it as much as we know. So that's what I can say.
Thank you. We will now have a question from Bloomberg and then followed by Anangwe.
My name is Noreen Ndiro with Bloomberg. I have a question for President Hichilema, which is a follow-up on debt restructuring. You said you'll be heading out to Paris. I'd just like to find out, what do you think your presence in Paris, or the significance of your presence in Paris, will have in expediting closing the debt restructuring deal? And what significance or impact will it have on the Zambian economy and the people of Zambia, bearing in mind that IMF has said it will only release the 188 million funding if the debt restructuring deal has been closed? And to President Kagame, President Hichilema previously spoke about security, peace and stability in the region, and we know that northern Mozambique has been having issues. Rwanda has sent troops together with SADC, which is part of Zambian troops. I would like to find out from you, from the reports that you've been receiving, do you think that stability is resuming in the region and business can begin to resume? Would you say companies like Total can resume their projects? Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing the time.
President, you may wish to go first.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to the question. Just to tag on very, very briefly on the question that you got from our colleague on the digital side of things. I think to support what the President said, to take one example, back to the COVID days. How did we keep our kids learning during that COVID restrictions? It was e-learning, isn't it? Imagine if we didn't have that digital capability, what would that meant? Slowing our kids down, taking more time before they completed school, then they wouldn't be in the productive sector of basically the economy. So today's world, technology, digital platforms is a basis for efficiency and effectiveness. I just thought I should indicate that. And that the investment that Rwanda made are now benefiting. I think he was being nice, benefiting a lot of countries on the continent in our quest to avoid reinventing the wheel. Cooperation again, the early moves that Rwanda made is benefiting many countries. And we want to thank you, Mr. President, and the people of Rwanda for that decision. I understand that it's actually now beyond our continent, people talking to Rwanda on the support that they can get from that investment in the digital area. The debt restructuring, I touched on it, and obviously you want me to say a bit more. My presence there may not be very important, but it's reasonably important. I'm sure you get my message, because this journey, this debt, in the context of our economy, is crippling. And the last time I was engaging the two leaders of the G20 framework on the Zambia debt restructuring, China and France, I say the same thing. We can do many things, like the president said about the decision to invest in digital, and that everything was a priority. For us now as Zambia, everything will be negatively impacted if we do not have a debt resolution. We simply have no headroom. Even the things we are doing in Zambia, right now, my cabinet colleagues will tell you, it's just that we are a bit ingenious, thinking outside the box. It would have been difficult to deliver free education, which we have done since we took office, for every kid that needs to be in school to be in school. Yet, the resource envelope has been conscripted in the Python example I gave. Many other things, I don't want to waste our time, we have done outside the box. But when we have the debt restructured, it will help release revenues that we can even implement the MOUs that we wish to implement. So the point I'm making is that the presidency and our finance team and foreign minister seated there, with all and other cabinet colleagues pulling as one unit to get this python out of our body. And it is a desire that my presence there, in a small way, will inject a little bit more sense of urgency. We're already behind schedule, given that we've had to network in this manner. And I think it is in a good example. When you have a crisis, it's important to work as a team, one team. President to do his part in the Rwanda situation. The Minister of Finance here will do his part. Minister of Foreign Affairs will do their part. Agriculture, everybody. That's the story of our debt issue. And mind you, our debt restructuring program is being used as an acid test, if I may use that expression, as an example. Then we hope that the pain we've gone through can alleviate the pain of other countries that are in a similar situation, because the framework we will agree, hopefully we should agree this in the next few days, then can be rolled out to assist other countries in a similar situation. So we have to carry the can so we can reduce the pain for others. That's what a community means. So I think I've captured your question of how valuable it is, and going forward, why my presence and the presence of others. Mind you, President Macron will be there, Prime Minister of China will be there, and it was agreed that the three of us must stand side to side in the next 2 days. Thank you. I'm sure you can interpret what that means. Thank you very much.
And quickly, let me summarize what the question that was meant for me, and that is on security and stability in Mozambique, an area where we have a mission to work with the Mozambicans to secure the area that was affected, which is mainly the province of Cabo Delgado. I should say, largely, the problem has been addressed. We are seeing progress in terms of large numbers of people that had been displaced being able to go back to their villages and homes and starting the activities as they should. And yes, there has been presence of our troops from SADC deployed in different parts of that area, and together that security and stability aspect has returned because of that. And so economic activities are beginning to pick up. including, I have heard, even those who are making investments there, like Total and others, are already thinking of resuming the activities. Of course, there may be one thing here or another there that needs to be put out of the way before they fully resume. But I think that is being enabled by such a collaborative efforts around the provision of security and working together with the host country, and each one playing their part, but together we see a lot of progress. I should say, let me say maybe 80% of the problem has been addressed. The 20 might be small or big depending on the number of circumstances, but that needs to be cleared as well. So maybe brief and we are done.
Thank you. My name is Eugene Anangwe with CNBC Africa. President Hichilema, I wanted to ask, you mentioned about trade, and with trade comes the use of currencies. The conversation around de-dollarization is gaining momentum. And President Ruto has said we need to trade using local currency as Africans. I want to understand from you as chair of COMESA, is this a shared vision at COMESA level? President Kagame and both of you, on the issue of visa on arrival, that was a great thing, but visa-free would be much better for both countries, I believe. I wanted to know what is causing it not to be announced. If it was not part of your talking points, could it be sneaked in, that we could have an announcement that there's visa-free for the citizens of both countries? Thank you so much. Thank you.
You want to?
Yeah, I can go.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, if you allow me, so you can close the trade. Yeah, I always like to tag trade to connote investment as well, because trade arises from investment. So now, the issue is that the dollarization is a subject of conversation, but not in isolation. The real issue is that the African economies, starting with our regional economies, SADC, East African Community, we would like to integrate more. Even the issue, I know President will address that visa issue. That's part of the elements of the things that are slowing us down. Regulations, platforms, technology, again, back to technology. Are we able to talk to each other? Businesses able to talk to each other when goods move across. So to encapsulate it, the Africa Free Trade Area initiative really is also anchored on existing efforts of, say, COMESA. COMESA, before the FTA, the African Free Trade Area initiative, was the largest trading bloc on the continent. And it has experienced a lot of things, using those experiences, good and bad. And in my speech, as I assumed the COMESA chairmanship, I did say that COMESA now, in this era that will be, to build on what others have done before us, because that's the way life works, we will focus on ensuring that COMESA talks to the Secretariat, COMESA Secretariat talks to the Secretariat of the Africa Free Trade Area, so that we make sure we leverage on the positive and negative experiences of the regional bodies to build quickly the African Free Trade Area, so that we can integrate our economies and, of course, businesses and people. What is the economy? It's people, micro level, human beings, micro level, then the macro level. We bring, I'm being summarized here, we bring all of that together. I see from your question that you have knowledge of the field. So we can bring these facets together much quicker. And for what? To basically help improve our economies, Africa economies, including the benefits that will flow to people, jobs, business, supply chain, value addition, all of that stuff. And the realization that Africa cannot be trading with each other through third parties. And this is a tendency on our continent. Before President Kagame to come to Rwanda would have had to go to maybe Dubai and then fly to Rwanda. So we want to clean up these distortions. Direct flights, road network, rail. In fact, I was talking to the EU yesterday in Lusaka. My last meeting was with the EU to talk about the Africa infrastructure gateway, Africa gateway, to look at more than just one time. So it's technology, communication, it's roads, it's railways. So we can move goods. For example, in Zambia, we have a surplus in food. One of the few countries we have surplus in food, but we can't move it to Central African Republic. We can't easily, and at a fair price. So these are the issues. So the issue of dollarization must be seen in the context of us integrating our economies for the greater good and being able to trade, invest and trade with each other without having to always quote another currency. And in there, you know, from the field, I'm sure, judging from your question, transaction costs we can reduce, translation costs, you know, we can reduce, foreign exchange exposure risk we can reduce. That is the story. So I think let's see that issue in the context of that. What President Ruto is saying is in the context of what we would like to do as a continent. And I can bet once we've done it, and we've done it properly, we make mistakes here and there, it will benefit an average African, an ordinary African. That's why we're elected into public office. If we were to take care of our interests only, I think we know how to do that, reasonably fair. But the challenge is to take care of many people who are talented differently, endowed differently, different platforms, different understandings. So we need to cut on the cost. We need to cut on the rigidity. We need to cut on, you heard me talk about a non-stop border post, so that goods can move quickly from one country to another, deficit to surplus. And every country has a surplus in something, may have a deficit in another. But once we work together in that way, and we don't have to be limited by the rules around one currency, we can do things better. In a nutshell, that's what I would say, but we need the media to support this agenda. But I must also say that the best integration is one which delivers benefits to all the participants, not to one or two only. Because in the end, people start complaining. Those where the benefits are not flowing, they start seeing no value. And I think that's the challenge now we have, the technical inputs to structure this thing properly. I'm sure you're aware that we are talking of an Africa clearinghouse, financial clearinghouse. We don't have to go through to Manhattan in order to do a transaction between Rwanda and Zambia. That's where we are going. Thank you very much.
Well, before I come to the point you asked me directly, adding to what His Excellency Hichilema has just said, or what President Ruto said, what they are saying is very important. But I would add, what is it that stopped us doing that, say, 10, 15 years ago? So we need to think about that, because it could have happened 10 years ago, could have happened 15 years ago. So there are other things we have to do, but they all stand on the political will of our countries in our continent and leaders addressing some of these issues that would enable us to achieve that, if, and I think it is important. So when we are talking about African integration, starting with East Africa or different parts of our continent with integration, when you are talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, about trading and so on, all of those issues come up. We should have done that long ago. There's nothing that prevented us. Yes, but at the same time, when you are trading and you want integration across the continent, you must address these other issues, and part of which you have raised. You've talked about visa. Visas enable people to move freely or with ease from one part to another, and people can't trade freely without moving freely. You also have to think about, indeed, that trading, fine, but through what currencies? So it brings up the question of the dollar. And the president explained it very well. If you have to move around before, it's like you take a journey from here when you're going to Zambia, but you first go 5,000 kilometers. You make 5,000 kilometers and then you go around and come back. When it is just a few kilometers, it is 2 hours from Lusaka to Kigali.
Yeah.
That is still happening, by the way, in the area of telecommunication. You don't see it, but do you know that the traffic, when you are calling somebody from here to Zambia, the traffic takes another flight all around and then arrives. But
with cost, additional
of
cost.
course, every
Yeah.
that route, everybody is taxing on the way. You are going through roadblocks, and everybody is having, so it ends up there with so these are things that are happening. These are real. But the ways to address them are there. We know them. We have known them for very long. So we have to address a number of other things before we arrive to the very important matters you have raised. So visa on arrival. Visa on arrival is one big step. In fact, when you say no visa at all, means two things. One is the old one, where you are not given a visa at all, so you don't go. Right? No visa may also mean no visa is required. So you can go and then nobody's going to. So be careful when you say no visa, because you already have no visa, but the bad type, meaning they deny you the visa that you need. So visa on arrival was a huge improvement because initially we had complications for anybody to get a visa. Or if you get it, it is very expensive. So visa on arrival means you are free to move and go to a place you want to go to. Only that visa either for record purposes, that is a stamp at the airport where you have arrived, or maybe they tax you. You pay, I don't know how much. Depends maybe from country to country, either $10 or $50. So the best situation is that one which you said. If you come from Kenya or Zambia or from where, and you arrive here, you just identify yourself, show who you are, where you've come from, and move without having to say, when is the visa? You know, every step there is a problem. I'm sure you have heard of, in fact, either you pay for visa twice or once, but the wrong party. Because you'll find somebody waiting for a traveler and say, where is the visa? And you say, no, I'm sorry. And then he says, no, visa, where is the visa? Meaning, he can actually give you a visa there. But you have to pay somebody who will not report what you have paid. All right? You are aware there are others who, when you have everything, you show the passport, and somebody will tell you there is a missing page in the passport, and say, what is it? Some people get confused. You are wondering what is it? All of them are there, nothing. No, there is a missing page. What they are really telling you, put in a note. Yes, that becomes the page they were looking for. So, but all these issues can be addressed. And so much the better if we can address them all at once, or arrive at a point where they are resolved. But visa on arrival is an improvement, as you are aware. Otherwise, you would have to go to an embassy, they tell you to come back after 1 month, then. But if it's something urgent, or if you are on business, you don't want to go to an embassy looking for a visa to travel to a country, and they tell you, oh, the visa issuer is not around, or you have to wait for 2 weeks. That's not friendly to doing business. But is visa on arrival solved that problem? At least you are not caught up in the bureaucracy for a long time or whatever time looking for the visa. You come, what you may find is a different problem, but it is an easier problem to deal with. You have arrived anyway. So, but I think we should be arriving at no visa required, and you just travel as we resolve all these other issues. I mean, you are aware, when I talked of Africa Continental Free Trade Area, there are still inconveniences or restrictions. Really what Africa Continental Free Trade Area meant was that ease and freedom of movement. It's happening. It's slow, and probably as frustrating as you and me would say. But we need to accelerate. And in fact, what we were talking with our guest, President Hichilema, earlier on, was being pragmatic, doing, implementing, doing things, so that we don't get lost in the niceties, in the processes, in, diplomatic languages that spice things, that even if they are not good. So I think we are trying to wash away some of these things, and all of you, all of us, officials, if they can understand this language and act by it, I think you can get there faster. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellencies, for your valuable time today. We have now come to the end of this session. We'd like to wish President Hichilema and his entire delegation an enjoyable stay in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you.